Identity and access management is the responsibility of assigning roles to users. Previously, we talked about assigning roles and managed identities to resources, but this is more focused on the users and the people that are going to be using the resources that we have on our Azure subscriptions. So this one is about authenticating a user, the responsibilities behind giving permission to a user is for authorization, authentication, lifecycle management, compliance, user provisioning. These have to be done responsibly. Humans are considered to be the weakest link in the chain of security. Computers will never behave in their own way. They're not going to make decisions on their own. So when you are giving a human an access, this is what is most risky. A computer will always behave in a certain way, but humans will behave in various ways. One of the principles behind assigning role assignments to users is to follow the principle of least privilege access. This is something that is talked about very frequently, and it's not only for users, but it's also for networking. The principle of least privilege access is to give a person or a resource the least amount of permission and access that they need. Preferably, it's something that they only need for their work. For example, if all a person needs to do for their work is to be able to look at the storage account, then they should be given the reader access for that storage account. And they should not be given anything else. They should not be given contributor, or they should not be given owner, or any of that, because they don't need it. In Azure, the only people that are able to give permissions out to other people to role assignments are the owner and a special kind of role assignment that a person can have, which is called the user access administrator role. So the owner and the user access administrator role, these are the two roles that allow them to be able to give roles to other people. So these are super important about who you decide to give them to, because they practically have access over the entire subscription. So here we have this person who is the owner of the subscription. Someone has to be designated as the owner. And then we have these other people down here who are all developers, and they each need to have their own access to their various resources. So the owner is going to decide who gets what roles. Maybe he's working on storage accounts, so he gets storage accounts. Maybe he needs to have more access, so he'll have more access to other resources. And this guy only needs to be able to read things. So the owner needs to be able to decide about who gets what and why they get it. And he also should hold the responsibility of being able to revoke those role assignments if they're no longer needed for those users. Now, assigning role assignments to users is nice to do, but what is very highly preferred and what is simpler to do is to assign them to groups instead. So if somebody were going to gain access to your Azure subscription, for example, you need to think about what group should they be part of. And you can make as many groups as you want. You can make a group for every resource that there is. But generally, there's usually these three groups that people will have. You have the reader group, which means that people cannot change anything. They can only look at things. And even with certain reading access, they don't have access to read certain secrets. Those are more for people that have higher privileges. You have the contributor group, which are people that need read and write access. These are people that are still heavily maintained because the changes that they're trying to make need to be watched and they need to be operated. So the contributor group is for people who need read and write access. And then the maintainer group is a step up from the contributor group. So the maintainer group are often people that oversee what's happening below them. So they're responsible for the readers and for the contributors and also for themselves as maintainers. So they help keep everything in the day-to-day functionality that it should remain in. There are also the administrators and the owners, but those are the highest privileges that can be given to a person. And those are kind of the ones that look over all of these others that you see here. Here I have my Azure subscription. My name isn't Gary Smith. This is just the name that I've given myself for this subscription. And it's going to be difficult for me to add role assignments here because I'm the only person that is in this repository. So I would be awkwardly assigning role assignments to myself, and it would be a bit difficult to demonstrate. But there's this page here that Azure has written, and I will link this page in the description of the video. And it's going to teach you, you're going to become familiar with this term, about role-based access control, or what's often called RBAC. It's going to tell you how to assign them, and it's going to tell you about how it would be done through the Azure portal and also some other practices. It has some links that you can look through down here. So you can look into other ways about how to do it, assign a user as an administrator, remove an Azure role, troubleshooting. So there are other links here at the bottom that can help you learn. But just as a couple of examples that you can see here, these are some screenshots that I've taken of some Azure subscriptions from some other people. So on each of the different resources, it's going to have this access control, and it's going to call the IAM, which is the Identity and Access Management. So this is where you can give role assignments. And if you look here, you see that we are on the subscription. So the subscription is very important because you're going to be in charge of all of the resources that are in that subscription. So when role assignments are given, they are given from here for the entire subscription. So we have these biller readers, and they specify about what they can read for, and we have these contributors down here. Just this one is called Azure User. This one is called Isabella. They have the contributor role for the entire subscription. You can also assign role assignments to a person based off of a resource. So you can see here we have a resource group, and we have this person, Alan, who is going to be a storage blob data reader, which is a role assignment that he can have towards a storage account. So this seems good because Alan likely doesn't need more things than just to read what the storage account is. So we don't want him to have something that he shouldn't have. But since this is a resource group right here, that means that any resources that are in this resource group, he is going to have it for. But if there are other resources, other resource groups, he's not going to have that same access. And likewise, you can take it a step further, and for certain resources such as storage accounts or service bus namespaces, they are going to have the access control IAM, and you can assign a person a role assignment to that resource. But keep in mind that groups are highly preferred. Groups are simpler, they're better to handle, and all you have to do is delete the user, and then their access is removed from all of those different groups. And it's an easier way to be able to maintain everything.